I think I love you. Raspberry beret. Hey. Just like the secondhand store. Hey, gotta be cool. Wear sunglasses too. Hey, audience, get a hold of yourself.
It's the All 80s weekend.
Hey, it's the All 80s weekend.
It's the All 80s weekend on Steve FM.
Steve. Yo, Steve.
That's great. It starts with an earthquake, birds and snakes and airplanes.
Airplanes.
It's not a rain.
80s were cool. You know, if you liked Ronald Reagan and Iran-Contra and the Iran-Iraq war where millions died and Boeing made a lot of money and we sold everything. Not we, but Mr. Rumsfeld sold everything to both sides. Hey, and I bet you all those dead soldiers really appreciate dying. You need to go. There was a guy named Butler. He was one of the more decorated soldiers. He was a colonel in the Marines. And he wrote, after he got out, that every war he was in, and he was like in there between 1890 and World War II, was all about Wall Street. Hey, and you know who made a lot of money? Prescott Bush. And we're heading for a time, from 20 on. Right now, it's like, it's kind of like that kind of ride. Yeah, it is. And of the world as we know it. Come on, YouTubers, sing. And of the world as we know it. And I feel fine. Yeah. You think Donnie Chump is all about supporting you? You are one nut job. Almost as, you know, Johnny Chump, Johnny Jimmy, Johnny B. He kicked me out the first time, the day of the election. We did you should go see it. If Johnny Jimmy, Johnny Chump B hasn't taken it down because he's so concerned. But anyway, we did a thing called Donnie Chump. I'm Donnie Chump. I was wearing the Jimmy wig. And Johnny B kicked me out for that because he thought it was great 1 second and was laughing hysterically, and then he put it up on his webpage, and then Donald Trump won the election. And John felt that our video won the election for Donald Trump, and it was my fault. Everything about the videos that we ever did together was all John. John's the brilliant one. John's the artist to end all times. John is a great musician, a great writer, great actor, great cinematographer. He's so great. I mean, he is so great. But this is the one, it was all, I'm bad. And he threw me out that November day, the day after election, I guess, November 9th. And I went downtown. It was, again, one of those days. This is before I realized that if Jimmy, Johnny, Hulk, Grandpa drinks more than a tenth of an energy drink, he becomes psychotic. And not psychotic like, you know, the DSM would talk about, but like Steve FM.
Hey, it's Johnny.
There's Johnny! Yes, Johnny! Hey, it's a party time! Johnny! Oh, it's Johnny! We'll turn that off, because they're going to go into their advertising thing. But anyway, the little story is what happened the first time Johnny B threw me out under the bus. meaning had no, I was there, I was helping, I was John's everything. I was doing all his chores, doing all his cooking. I was there to always listen to the same story and over and over and over again about, how he was this way as a child and it was all his mother's fault and how his father stepped in his space. And these were the main reasons why Jimmy John was the way he was. Not his fault, Anyway, I thought that if I could be there and help him balance, because he's a scale, and once he tips one way or the other, it's like, so long, see you later reality. But one of those days, after a few of those energy drinks, he throws me out under the bus, and I have to, there's no, can't we wait till tomorrow? Maybe, it's snowing and raining right now, and I have no place to go, and I've just called people, and no one's answering the phone. I got nothing to do. Well, I had to go. And I could have probably stayed there and whined and talked and shrunk Jimmy to the point where he said, okay. But, I had a choice. Did I want to do that or just go into the unknown? So I got in my, broke down and headed down the hill and said a prayer saying, universe, I have no idea what to do. Take care of me. So I was driving down the road, and I had been, once I got really sick and couldn't work, I was in service, volunteering for all the churches to try and get them to work together. I was working with entities of nonprofit that weren't the behemoths of Goodwill and TAP, which stands for Total Action Plan or something like that, or HAT, which stands for Homeless Action Team. I was in a meeting once then, and the Goodwill, who's probably the only Goodwill within the big R, who really actually services people without trying to get over on them, meaning make money. Like the mission makes $30,000 a head for everyone who stays there over a certain time if they fit into certain categories. And that's all they're looking for, are people like that they can harvest. Kind of like Bitcoin. You know what the 5th largest user of electricity in the United States is? Is bit mining. And it's at a point where mining for Bitcoin is more expensive than mining for gold and coal and oil put together. Hey, now that makes sense. An economic system that costs more money than it's worth. Yep. Anyway, and what they do is they go into neighborhoods that have been crushed, that had been in the 40s, 50s, and 60s industrial giants like Detroit and places in Ohio, upstate New York, had a big infrastructure industry, and then in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and O's, their industry was just cratered, and taken away by the age of the, and I feel fine. And so who moves in but Bitcoin to mine because the electricity is cheaper than dirt? And then what happens is those people who are like just getting by, and it doesn't take a lot of employment to run 1 million servers, maybe a handful of people, but their electric bill, which was the only thing that was keeping them alive because it was the cheapest in the world, and that's how they heated their house, goes through the roof because the usage of it for Bitcoin is like Mondo Bizarro. Anyway, that's where we are, kids. And in the year 2020, yo, baby. Now, I'm many things. I'm your basic sensei, Owll Bob, a shaman, psychosocial, cultural, forensic anthropologist. That takes it all into the alchemical. And I look at trends. And there are thousands of these, biorhythms. Everything has a biorhythm. And even things that you may not think are biological have a biorhythm. And you look at the trends of where those, some are really long, take millions of years to occur, some take minutes. And what's the very interesting thing is all of these biorhythms are going to come together in synchronicity. And they have been since 1969. The year we landed on the moon, the year of Woodstock, the year of many things. And I'm going to tell 3 new stories about all of this. One about Woodstock and what that was, and one about where Woodstock went to, and it went to the Rainbow Gathering. I'm going to talk about that. And what it all meant for our social dynamic and part of that trend. And the economic trends and technological trends and all of these synchronistic things. So that the cycle started at a peak in 69, which was the peak of the Piscean get what you want through force. We were in the Vietnam War. We had about 20 other wars going on. We were having revolution in Europe and the United States. Anybody who watched the Democratic Convention in Chicago, kind of, watching Jimmy John Jim, and if you were to take the Jimmy John, Grandpa Jimmy, Hulk Jimmy video in the car and plug it into this cycle, that's why John is the canary in the social dynamic coal mine. So we start at the top of 69, we go down the hill all the way through the Jimmy Carter and 3 Mile Island and the Iranian hostages, which was a scam by Grandpa Bush to basically start the plan of the new American century, bringing on something like Pearl Harbor, which kind of happened in 2011. And so we're like going down that snowdrift, through the Jimmy Carter, through the, first moron of, what's his name? Ronald Reagan. But, Ronnie was an Aquarian, so he wasn't that much of a moron. I mean, he played the moron, but he at least read books. And he did some things that actually put a bend in that cycle. And I'm going to talk about that and the connection of the Nazis, New World Order, and what's going on now, and what to expect. That's video number 2. And video number 3 is the dynamic of service of love's co-creation. And again, if you look at why, people ask me, why were you even involved with John Birmingham? What up? What are you doing? What do you, for a year and a half, as I tried to help John and was always there for John and took all the guff John, getting thrown out of the house 26 times, but every time he threw me out after the first one. And that's what the third story is going to be about, is about unconditional love and how it's not like John wants, I just want to have sex with a woman. I've been so old and I never had sex with a woman except for my wife and maybe a couple other, no. What you want is intimacy. And intimacy isn't sex. It's a connection of heart to heart, soul to soul. And that only comes when you are ready to do that. That's why they call it co-creation. It's not like something, you get, you buy, It's not like prostitution. And a lot of people think, oh, my children, I'll just buy them this present. I won't spend any time with them. I won't be with them. I'll just buy them a present so they'll love me. It's not how it works. Anyway, those are the 3 stories coming. This has been a advertisement. Now, I'm challenged with all my technology. Now, Johnny Boy John, he was good at this. He was good at putting it up there. And that's why I let him do it. You know, I knew that was a voice for me out. And I knew if I did it with Johnny John Boy that we would be like Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. But John Boy is not just Jerry Lewis. He is Stan Laurel. He is Costello. He is all of those characters in our mythology who you just have to shake your head and say, how do these people survive? What are they doing on Earth? Well, they are meant to be here, to be our canary in the social coal mine. And then there's sharper guys like Jon Stewart and Dean Martin and Will Rogers. And that's me, you know. The sweet, nice guys who got a little bit of an edge, who try to focus things, right? Give a little insight to the raw data of Johnny with a Y. Just like Larry, Billy, Kenny. And you know, Kenny, just look what happens to Kenny in South Park. But he comes back every time. And that's our Johnny John. He comes back every time. And a true friend is someone who doesn't give up. Now, John, he hasn't even gone there for me. I was only around as long as I could do stuff for him, run his errands, get his mail, buy his food, and cook for him every day for a year and a half, 3 meals a day. Someone to talk to him, someone to keep him on the straight and narrow that he wanted to be but couldn't be. Someone who kept saying, hey, why don't you give your kids a call? Let's go see your kids. Let's go visit your kids. And, you know, yes, it's hard. Yes, there are issues, you know. Yes, there are things. And to fix these things within our lives, we have to go past our own selfish ego and id. And when you see the video, again, I keep saying, go to the Grandpa Jimmy, Hulk Jimmy in the car. Because that is us when we're like Jimmy, John, Kenny, Billy, Larry, Bobby, Tommy. Tommy, can you hear me? Can you hear me calling? Tommy. Anyway, I love you all. And John, you're always my best friend. And even though I'll probably never see you again, unless you are your better self, just like I took care of my parents for the last 28 years of their life, and they were like, they could be like the worst, you know, John goes on about his parents, how they are the, you know, the bane of his everything. Well, my parents made John's parents look like, the Sugar Plum Fairy, you know? But my parents had their good sides, and that's what I played to. I drew their best out in them. So Johnny John Boy, whenever you are your best, not giving me stuff, but being good to yourself, I'll be there. But otherwise, I'm your friend, and always will be. Okay, handsome. And all of you YouTubers, again, this is the day that we remember. And we shouldn't just remember the dead people who died for Wall Street. We need to remember all of those people of service. Thank a policeman, thank a nurse, thank a doctor. Thank everyone you know, a grandma, your aunt, everyone you know who is there to help. Stay well, be good.